We can be the solution. Our interaction is the vaccination. Respect!
There is a virus, by the way, in my opinion, my subjective opinion, and the virus is called fear. But guess what? Here's the secret, guys. You all have the vaccine, and it's called the truth. I'm going to pass you over to Grace now. We're going to go through a little break.
3, 2, 3!
Freedom, guys, freedom. It comes at a cost, though. Are you willing to pay?
Want to see? Hey.
Time and time again. You know, it's literally written in stone on the Georgia Guidestones. You know, they want to kill 7 billion people. 7 billion. It says on the Georgia Guidestones, maintain humanity at 500 million people. 7.5 billion people on the earth. They want to get rid of 7 billion of us. So Henry Kissinger, in a speech to the WHO, said, and I quote, "Once the herd accepts mandatory vaccines, it's game over. They will accept anything, forcible blood and organ donation for the greater good. Control the sheep's minds and you'll control the herd. Vaccine makers stand to make billions, and many of you in this room today are investors. It's a big win-win. We need to thin the herd, and the herd pays us for providing extermination services. Now what's for lunch?" That was a quote from Henry Kissinger. Bill Gates stated in a TED talk that he could lower the population by 10 to 15% using vaccines and reproductive health care. So he's saying he can kill at least 750 million people. But it seems Billy Boy's sights are set much higher than that, because he said in an interview that he wants to give 7 billion people this vaccine of his. Well, he knows full well there's 7.5 billion people on Earth. So 7.5 billion people minus 7 billion is 500 million. Is it a coincidence that that's what's written on the Georgia Guidestones? I don't think so. And while we're on the subject of Bill Gates, why are all the people who are trying their best to frighten us all receiving money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? All of them. I think Chris Whitty got 40 million. Yeah? Neil Ferguson, Anthony Fauci, the CDC, the World Health Organization. Well, the World Health Organization is almost entirely funded by Bill and Melinda Gates. Yeah? The Guardian, the BBC, they're all employees of Bill Gates. Yeah, and they're all working together to manipulate you.
It's a paper that's got my website on it. So
the astute among you might have noticed that mainstream coverage of this has shifted away from deaths to cases. Yeah?
Of course you are.
So what's the case? You know? Well, the reason for that anyway is because the number of deaths that they can get away with reporting as COVID-19 has fallen to virtually zero. Yeah. So,
sorry, it didn't tell him I've got most of it.
Anyone with a temperature's got it.
Yeah, everyone with a temperature's got it, yeah. But yeah, there's a dramatic, it's not frightening, you know, number of new cases. You know, which on the surface kind of looks like we're heading towards one of their mythical second spikes, yeah? Which has never ever happened in the history of a disease progression. Yeah? But they relentlessly tell us that this second spike is coming, you know.
I know,
excuse me, sorry. But the test that's available for this COVID-19 doesn't actually test for COVID-19, yeah? And it's likely to be triggered by any coronavirus, or inflammation even, yeah? Even remnants of a flu vaccine you might have taken about 10 years ago, you know? So the RT-PCR test according to its inventor, Carrie Mullis, he said it's not to be used for diagnostic purposes. The inventor said, don't use it for that. And yet they're using it. Yeah? And it's been proved to have an 80% false positive rate. So just to be clear, if 100 people get tested and proved positive, 80 of them don't actually have COVID. Yeah? Now that figure has been superseded by Dominic Raab, I think that's how you say it, Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, admitting on Sky News that this test has a 93% false positive rate. He said that on the news. Yeah? President John Magufuli of Tanzania, he ordered all these test kits from the WHO. And instead of just using them, he got his people to test all sorts of things like sheep, goats, pawpaw, engine oil, all sorts of things, and most of them came back positive. There are also reports of nurses who sent in unused tests, and they all came back positive. In July, The Independent reported there was a whole load of fishermen from Argentina who tested positive after 35 days at sea and negative tests before they left. Yeah, that's one story that went down the memory hole. Yeah, there are numerous reports from all over this country of people invited to come in for a COVID-19 test, and for one reason or another didn't go. But nevertheless, they got a note in the post saying you tested positive. You know. So with such unreliable testing methods, it's really easy to manufacture the appearance of an outbreak. Yeah, if the definition of a case is a positive test, whether or not the person is sick or showing any symptoms whatsoever. Yeah, the more tests they perform, the more cases they're going to be finding. Cases soar when they test more. So on the 29th of August, 40,000 healthy people, which the government will like to call asymptomatic cases, yeah, they protested in Trafalgar Square. None of them wore masks, none of them were social distancing, yeah. Many of them were hugging and kissing and shaking hands, and there wasn't any hand sanitizer in sight, yeah. So if this was a real viral pandemic, then 14 days after that protest, which is the supposed incubation period of COVID, there should have been a massive outbreak across the whole of London. But there wasn't. Yeah, nothing happened. And then there was another 35,000 people in Trafalgar Square on the 19th. Still nothing happened 14 days later. Yeah? So this is not a pandemic. You're being tricked and fooled by another invisible boogeyman that they conjured up to frighten you. Yeah? Now that the idea of terrorists is no longer inspiring the same level of fear. This is a psychological war, and they've experimented on us. They know how we tick. Yeah, they know what frightens us, and they've been using that knowledge against us. They know that we're social creatures and that we defer to authority. When our boss tells us to do something, we kind of tend to do it. Yeah, there've been all sorts of experiments that show that how we react to things. Yeah, in April, the governments around the world told us that masks do nothing to control the spread of the disease. Absolutely nothing, and actually they can be harmful to you. But now they've implemented a mass mask campaign. Yeah, the masks aren't for a virus; they're to show compliance. Yeah, to create fear and anonymity. Has anybody heard of the still face experiment? Probably none. Okay, the still face experiment. I'll go back 5 minutes. So the still face experiment shows that the psychological effects of wearing a mask. So a mother will sit in front of a baby, and for 2 minutes, the mother has to keep her face absolutely neutral. And first of all, the baby will try and engage with the mother, okay? And when that fails, start to point at things in the environment to get the mother to engage. And then after less than a minute, the baby will start getting agitated and fearful, and then will start crying. And they have to stop the experiment after 2 minutes, otherwise it will cause the baby irreparable damage. So when you see people with a mask on, you're experiencing the still face experiment. Yeah? You're not babies anymore, but deep inside you, you're feeling the same effects. Yeah? They're using this psychological experiment against us. So it's absurd to trade your freedom and ability to explore your life for the illusion of safety. Yeah? 400 years ago, you would have to fight. Go out and fight with a sword and a musket. Yeah? But it seems that now that everyone pulls their pants down and bends over every time Boris Johnson or one of his dead-eyed accomplices farts out an order. We have to remember how to say no.
Yeah.
We have to find the courage to stand up. You know, we have some dark days ahead of us, one way or the other. You know, if this control system gets its way, we're in for a totalitarian, technocratic nightmare that we can never wake up from. And even if we stand up against this, the act of resistance is going to invite beatings, chemical attacks, and even electrical torture, and even death for some of us. But we can't be afraid of death or pain or any of this, or being imprisoned or fined, because, as I said, the heroes of bygone ages would have to actually face their fears and stand up to the enemy directly, with a sword in hand, ready to fight to the death. And make no mistake about it, we're in a fight to the death. You know, they're coming for you and your family, and they're using radio frequency weapons and this virus against us. Yeah, the historians of future times are going to look back on this time, and they're going to see that the heroes of this whole thing were us, because there's nobody else to stand up against it. It's us. When the bully beat us up at school and took our lunch money, yeah, we were taught that we got to ask the teacher to come and help us. Yeah, what we should have learned is to fight back, stand up and fight back, right? And yes, we might have got a bloody nose, right? But that bully would have learned that he can't take our lunch money without consequences. Yeah, and we would have learned that the bully wasn't quite as strong as we thought they were. You know. But we need to show that courage to fight a foe that seems much stronger than we are, yeah? Even if we get a beating along the way. Because fight we must, because this is the end game. What we do or do not do, and this time, will determine the fate of humanity. And if we stand by and do nothing, we'll not recognise ourselves as human anymore. We'll be incapable of resisting, and we're going to slide into extinction and not even notice. We have to resist. We have to say no. We have to disobey. We can't be afraid of ridicule, fines, prison or death, because the alternative is far worse if we do nothing. Do not consent. Do not comply. Resist in any way you can. Thank you.
It's Allegedly Dave.
Okay, Allegedly Dave, give me one point that is really important to you and why you're doing this.
The one point that's really important to me is actually getting people to take that one step to actually look at any part of this. Just take that step to look, because most people will not actually take 5 minutes out of their day to go, I wonder if there's another side to this. Because essentially they're getting one side presented to them, you know, by the media relentlessly. This is the way it is. This is the way it is. This is the way it is. Okay, but anybody who takes a few minutes to go, I wonder if there's another side. Let me have a look. Then they start to uncover the lies, the sort of contradictions and everything, and then that whole narrative just falls apart.
Right. And if people were to do one thing, what would you say? Advise them to do?
Just ask questions. That's it. Simple. Ask a question. They tell you something on the news. Say, is that right? Let me see if I can find out if that's right. And that's all it takes. You start looking, you know, they give you a figure for death rates, yeah, and or they say, oh, the cases are rising. Oh, okay, cases are rising. Does that translate into deaths? Let me have a look. See how many deaths are going on. Gasp! Shock horror! Hardly any. 0. So what's the case? And you're looking. Oh, okay, positive tests. Okay, let's have a look at the tests. You find out about the PCR test, and you realise it's bullshit. You know. So then you realise that the whole thing falls apart again.
Right. Can you also say something about the fact they're no longer talking about COVID-19, they're talking about coronavirus within the testing?
Well, that's interesting because, it started off as coronavirus, then it started changed to COVID-19, and as you say, it's now shifting very subtly back to coronavirus. Because we've all got coronaviruses. Yeah, you get a coronavirus every year when you have a cold or the flu or anything. Yeah, these things are part of you. You have coronaviruses inside you. Yeah, so as soon as they turn this so-called pandemic into a coronavirus pandemic, okay, then literally every year people are going to have coronavirus and it's all terrible and you're all going to die. Just like they've demonised the measles now, yeah? The young mothers now are terrified of their children getting measles. Whereas when I was young, we would get it all the time. You'd have the measles, you'd feel woozy for a couple of days, and you'd have ice cream afterwards, you know? And it wasn't this dread disease. But now they've turned it in the minds of people into a killer disease that you need a MMR vaccine for. No, they're going to do the same thing with coronavirus. Everyone's going to get it because everybody has it, right? And now it's a ongoing, continuous pandemic, and that's what they'll do. They'll just spin it out forever.
Thanks, Dave.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest hurdle that we face in this whole kind of situation? What's the biggest hurdle? Is it trying to wake the public up? Is it trying to take down the government? Is it trying to stop the pharma companies? What in your opinion, what's the biggest hurdle?
Well, it's what I've just said. Actually, it's actually getting the public to wake up to the fact that they're being lied to, and all it takes, as I said, is to take the time to actually ask a question and look for yourself. As Morpheus said, you can't tell somebody what the Matrix is. They have to see it for themselves.
Exactly. I mean, that's a great analogy, and that's fantastic. So based on that, why do you think they cannot see it? How will they see it now?
This is why it's so difficult to wake people up. Okay, hypnosis is real. It's a real thing. It's not just a party trick. Yeah, hypnosis is real. A hypnotist can, with a set of words and the way he speaks, can convince you that an onion is an apple, right? And if you're hypnotised, you're going to bite into that onion and think, delicious apple, yeah? And if I came up and said, dude, that's an onion, right? No, he's going to go, no, it's an apple, it's delicious, yeah? But what you can do is kind of bypass their hypnotised mind and say, what colour is that apple? And he'll look and, he's not been hypnotised not to see the colour. It's like, okay, it's brown. How many brown apples have you seen? Bloody hell, it's an onion,
Nice.
Again, it's getting them to take that step to go and actually look for themselves. And when they do, they break the spell.
Yeah.
And it is a spell. This is why they've given us television.
Yeah.
They literally forced television on everybody.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, when televisions were very, very, very expensive, nobody could afford one. What did they do? They rented televisions out to people for free, for next to nothing.
A pound in the slot. I remember them. Yeah.
And that's it. So everybody got a television, so everybody could get the same programming.
Yeah. And I always say that it's quite often here that it's he who controls the money controls the people, and I disagree with that myself. Actually, I think he who controls the information controls the people.
Information, yes.
Because I think information is the true power in that sense, as opposed to not knowledge, but information to certainly hypnotise the people.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, here's the thing. I've gone into language. Okay, there's a video I've done called the language of creation. If you get
we'll link to that in if we can. Is it on?
It's on YouTube on my channel.
Okay.
So essentially, Greek philosophy, going back into history, Greek philosophy has been about how to program the left-hand side of your brain so that you live in the left-hand side of your brain. So they literally make knowing something a question of logical deduction. So you're given a set of facts, and then you're given a story to link those facts, and now you know something. That's not the right way of knowing something. The right way of knowing something is intuition, knowing how, without knowing how you know it. Right? That's real knowing. But they've taken us away from intuition and given us logical deduction. And now, with that logical deduction process as our way of knowing things, they can program that just with words.
So, do you think the two sides are skewed or intertwined, or do you think
What do you mean two sides?
So the logic and the intuition? Do you think?
No. If you think about our education system, it's all about programming the left-hand side of your brain.
Yeah.
There's no drama, arts, dance, painting in schools anymore.
So essentially, in school, we're just being prepared for society.
You're being prepared
as
to
opposed
think in a certain way rather than go with the feeling and understanding and knowing something. The original language of mankind was an intuitive language. You knew. Have you got time for me to give you a little demonstration?
We got all the time in the world, honestly.
Okay.
This is important.
Okay, so here's the difference between English and the original language, which was called Paleo-Hebrew. Okay? So I'm gonna use you as like an experiment here.
Good.
Okay. So I'm going to describe a film to you in English, and you have to guess what the film is. Okay? A man on the autistic spectrum recounts his life to strangers. What's the film?
The Rain Man.
Rain Man. Okay. So what happened there is in the left-hand side of your brain, you were listening to the sounds I was making.
Yeah.
You were fetching the meanings of those sounds. Yeah. And comparing them to a list of films you'd seen, and you guessed. You had to make a guess of what film it was, and you guessed Rain Man.
Yeah.
Okay. So Paleo-Hebrew is a language of pictures. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe the same film, but in pictures. Okay. So man running. So emojis. Okay. Man running. A few trees. A park bench. A box of chocolates. A shrimp. And a boat. So what happened there?
Yeah.
Right. Because you know what film it is.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Right. So what happened there is, when I was describing the pictures, your left-hand side of your brain could not analyse them. It was just set pictures. You can't go, that means that. No, it was your left-hand side of your brain was cut out of the process.
Yeah.
Okay, you were listening to or imagining the pictures, and all of a sudden you knew what the film was.
Instinctively.
You didn't have to guess. It was intuitive. You knew what the film was.
Because the smile came on my face because I knew.
I knew as soon as you smiled, you're like, I knew you knew. Yeah.
So do you think? Okay, I'm going to just throw this out there.
Yeah.
Do you think words are now somebody else's intellectual property? So they've been hijacked as in
the whole
language.
Has been hijacked. It was the modern English, right, was invented 500 years ago when this bloodline that controls everything right now.
Yeah.
That's when they came back into power, and they created things like the English language, the round Earth, the ball Earth.
Yep.
They created all these lies that we're living through now. They created it when they came into power, and what we're seeing right now is the end of their blessing. It's the end of their reign as such, and their reign is crumbling right now. They're desperately trying to throw the kitchen sink into this one because this is their last attempt.
Yes, and it is very desperate. I mean, some of the things they're doing, which kind of links back into how people don't see it, because some of the things they're doing is quite desperate.
Yeah.
Some of the these lockdown measures, based on, like you say, based on cases. I mean, it's just desperation and how people are not seeing through it. So
Well, they're hoping that people are already so brainwashed, so dumbed down, that they're just going to accept it. But that's not quite... what happened here today is showing you that's not what's happening now.
And around the world. So,
around the world.
And we can't keep being labelled as conspiracy theorists, because not all of these people from all these different demographics, all these walks of life, all these cultures, they can't be all conspiracy theorists.
No, and you know what? If they didn't have complete control of the media, which they have, we would be shocked how many people feel the same way as us.
Yeah.
Because they've got the media under their control, they can hide that. When I was in America, there was like a 1.2 million people marched on Washington to protest the Iraq War. Okay.
Yep. I think it was close in Hyde Park. I think it was close to 1 million. Was it not in Hyde Park or?
What, at the same time, yeah. Something like that. But what I saw, because I was in America at the time, what I saw on the media was they waited until most of the march had gone past, and they put their cameras on the last stragglers. And I said, yes, a few thousand people turned up in Washington, nothing to see here, blah, 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 right? So anybody who just watches the media,
will have a blurred perception of the reality.
People and a few nutters, but if they saw 1 million people, they would have gone, wow. And the next event, there would have been 4 million people there. Yeah, this is what they have to stop. So they make sure they close down any dissenting voices, so that most people don't get to hear them.
Yeah, brilliant. Allegedly, Dave, thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your knowledge. Actually, it's fascinating. We could probably listen to you all day. I'm sure we'll connect again, hopefully, and get some more words from you.
Not a problem.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Excellent.